Week 6 NFL picks powered by Liquid IV Hydration Multiplier. Fuel your play. I'm Chris Hassel, and so far this season, it's all about the under. Talking about unders, talking about underdogs, both hitting around 60% of the time so far. And boy, do we have a low total for you to kick off the week. The Bears are hosting the Commanders. It's a pick 'em, and the total is just 38. Joe Musso has a preview.
Week 6 will kick with a game that could see plenty of it. Offense an uphill battle this season in both Chicago and D.C. For the Bears, a historic reluctance to throw the football, leaving the often unanswered question in Chicago to again linger. Do they have the guy? Washington hoped they'd found theirs after swapping seconds and dealing a pair of thirds to Indy for Carson Wentz.
I can see a clear vision of hopes and dreams and where we want to go. And so for me, that honestly gives me chills, gives me goosebumps, gets me excited.
A 4 TD performance in Week 1 offered glimpses of what Wentz once was, but a steep decline since has heated up the seats and left the front office to ponder its future.
Why do you think the teams in the division are farther ahead at this point?
Quarterback.
While situations may be far different, the time is now for a pair of quarterbacks striving for stability. With the playoffs quickly sliding from focus, Wentz can only hope to avoid his 4th team in as many seasons. As for Fields, the second-year signal caller, simply looking to sidestep a similar fate as countless QBs before him.
Just keep going. That's all you can do. Just keep going, keep fighting, keep grinding.
Patience does often come at a premium, but there's never a shortage in support from a pair of fan bases dying for a winner. And while long-term success seems to be far off, Thursday night in the Windy City, one will have reason enough to celebrate. So forget your wagon without wheels, or a field that only appears to be getting longer. It's prime time from the Second City. Put on a show.
Pete, did Joe Musso get you excited for the matchup between the Bears and Commanders?
I did. I was missing the Mafia reference this time around. I wanted that one. By the way, the way me and Brady are picking games, we should get the abuse that Carson Wentz got from Ron Rivera. I mean, my God.
One thing I will say is that Pete's best bets have come through this season. He's 4-1 in best bets, but the guys, again, with a sub-500 week. That's why we've decided to split them up this week. We had to get you guys away from each other. There were too many agreements. You guys are shadowing each other. I think this is the week that we get it going again. That's Pete Prisco. That's Brady Quinn.
By the way, you're right. He's doing what he did at Notre Dame, cheating off of my paper like he did in class at Notre Dame to get all those.
And not the right answers off of your paper like I'm sure he found at Notre Dame. Hey, let's start with the game. We're not going to spend more time than we need to on this one, but it is the Thursday night or the standalone game, and the total, which started at 40, Pete, is down to 38.
That means there's not going to be a lot of points in this game, and you wouldn't expect to be a lot of points in this game. Usually on a short week, that's a problem, and these two offenses are bad. Although Carson Wentz, it's weird. He took a lot of crap from the media and the coaches last week, including Ron Rivera, and he didn't play that poorly. But at the end of the game, you just knew he wasn't throwing the touchdown pass to win it because he's Carson Wentz. He put up some good numbers last week. I think he'll go in here, and they have the better offense. I think they'll score more. It's not going to be a lot, but they'll find a way to win this.
Jeez, he's Mr. Thursday night, Brady.
That's right. He's had a lot of success on Thursday night. I'm not sure that necessarily matters in this particular matchup just because they're playing on Thursday night. I think it's going to have more to do with, his comfort with going up against the Matt Eberflus coach defense that it didn't really look its best last week versus Minnesota, as what Kirk Cousins was, I think, perfect pretty much for the first half of that game. So Carson Wentz should be licking his chops. But Pete said something that's true. I mean, look, Carson Wentz is not the problem with this Washington team. Defensively, they've struggled. Chase Young, obviously not even back with his team yet, considering the injury he suffered, and probably hasn't been the player that they drafted him and hoped he would be. I'm sure Ron Rivera saw flashes of maybe Julius Peppers or the second coming of that. They haven't had much of a ground game. Their offensive line has had injury issues. The bottom line is, say what you want about Carson Wentz at the end of the game, and yeah, it looked a little ugly, but it was probably the only reason they were in that game. So I think I believe in him more, and especially at the end of the game, if there is a drive, they have to go get points. I believe in the Washington Commanders' ability to do that more so than I do Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears, even though they're playing at home. So it's a pick 'em. I'll take Washington. I just think they're a little bit more of the more explosive team, better team. But Pete, I don't know about you. That sent a signal to me that Ron Rivera is feeling some pressure, that he would just outright throw his quarterback under the bus. And I know he defended himself and talked to the team about it and talked to Carson Wentz about it. But when you have to have the media follow up with you to expound on that and then really dive into what did you mean when you just said quarterback, that probably means somewhere in the back of my mind he's putting a lot of blame here on Carson Wentz.
Well, I mean, he should put a lot of blame on his defense. Defense has been bad. I mean, this is a team, and Ron Rivera's calling card is his defense, and they've been really bad on that side of the ball.
Second straight year.
Yeah. I mean, remember last year they were supposed to be the defense was supposed to carry them to the postseason, and they didn't. Now, they've had some injuries there, obviously Chase Young being one of them, but you got to be better than what you are in defense, and that's his calling card. So calling out Carson Wentz was a little out of character for Ron Rivera.
You have Washington ranked dead last in your power rankings, but you think they're going to win this game.
Yeah.
So how are they last?
Well, you can be last and win, and then you're not last next week.
All right. All right, so the guys both like Washington to win that pick'em in Chicago on Thursday. It is time for Pete Prisco's spinning top of the week. And this is a rare one here, Pete. It's a team coming off a win.
Well, it's the Kansas City Chiefs offensive tackles. They were awful. And we saw them on the night game, so everybody watched them. But watching the tape, it was even worse. And I talked to Brady about it yesterday. We texted back and forth, and he's right. They were better in the second half. But early in that game, it was bad, and Andrew Wiley really had problems. Now, Max Crosby's a really good player, but he's got to be better than this. You can't. They ended up on the ground a lot, and that's never a good thing when you're an offensive lineman ending up on the ground. And you can see it here, just getting pushed back into the pocket. Luckily, Mahomes was able to step up and make a play with his legs. But there was too much of that early in the game. They wised up in the second half. They helped a little bit. And here we go. Orlando Brown's not a left tackle. I never thought he was. I always thought he was a right tackle. He struggles with speed guys, and you can see that there with Chandler Jones. And by the way, Chandler Jones came into this game doing nothing on the season, and he just exploded in this game. And here we go again. This is the two of them. Right, both of them. I mean, it was just really bad. And then, if you want to throw in something in the run game, in the pass game again, here we go. I mean, this is Cleveland Farrell. This guy doesn't even sniff the quarterback.
Hang on, that was a touchdown pass.
Yeah, but it's still getting beat. And if Mahomes saved them a bunch. And I told Brady this on yesterday, we were texting. They chipped in the second half. They helped them a little bit. So they wised up to that, and they were better in the second half. But early in that game, that's a problem. And oh, by the way, here comes Von Miller and gang, one of the best pass rushing teams in the league.
To Pete's point, one of the things that concerns you about that tape, too, at least for Wiley, is you've got chip help on the outside. You can't get beat back inside. That was the first sack, or at least pressure that you saw on that cut-up tape. But to Pete's point, look, Orlando Brown, he comes to the Kansas City Chiefs. He wants to play left tackle so he can get paid like a left tackle. I tend to agree with Pete. Maybe he'd be better off on the right-hand side, or it's just still a work in progress. Either way, speed and really that dip around the edge or his hands have always been an issue, at least for him as a bigger tackle like that. And sometimes you'll see that from time to time. But I think the one thing that as you move forward and looking at this group and what may happen is a lot of times Kansas City has the ability to use just 5-man protections because they trust Mahomes in fixing an issue with that offensive line, or they want to get their backs out. They want to get a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, who they have now with a ton of speed, or Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They want to get those guys out in space. They feel like that's a good matchup, or at least a good dump down for them. In order to do that, though, you got to be able to hold up at least for about 2.5 seconds. So to Pete's point, we'll see how this holds up next week. Look, they're playing at home. They're going to have the ability to use their cadence, which I think Patrick Mahomes can implement more of that to try to draw those guys off sides and try to help at least protect those tackles, that offensive line a little bit.
We'll have a pick for this game in just a little bit.
He
Chiefs
agreed
and Bills.
with me. This is the first time.
He didn't defend the offensive line.
No, this is the first time he's agreed with me. Maybe we should keep him offset the rest of the year.
Hey,
he agreed with me.
If you guys hit your picks this week, we're keeping Brady and you separated once again next week.
What if we both just had unbelievable weeks?
We're keeping it this way.
Wow, Brady. You don't have to come
it's
to the
been
office?
that kind of year so far for you
Thanks,
guys.
Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Coming up, 3 AFC North teams playing in the early window on CBS. All of them are favorites, including the Ravens against the 4-1 Giants. We'll get the picks next. All right, let's pick the early window on CBS this Sunday. The Bengals slight favorites in the Superdome against the Saints. Joe Burrow's first game there since winning the national championship when he was a member of the LSU Tigers. A really good matchup between the Ravens and the Giants. G-Men 4-1, but underdogs in that game. Jags and Colts, and Patriots take on the Browns. New England coming off a shutout last week, trying to get back to 500. All right, Chris Hassel joined by Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn. Let's start with Bengals and Saints. Jameis Winston back at practice. Still don't know at this point if he's going to be able to play in that game, as Andy Dalton may again face his former team. This would be 3 straight starts over 3 different seasons where he faces his former team.
Well, I mean, look, when you think about this offense, it's all Taysom Hill. I mean, you got to go to the gimmick. I love the gimmick.
It's working. It worked last game.
But that's what he is. He's a gimmick, and it's good. Get him involved in the offense as a gimmick. He never was a quarterback, but I'm okay with him as a gimmick, particularly when you don't have your starting quarterback. So I think it worked last week. The problem I have with the Saints, and I'm wrong about this because I was dead wrong in the offseason. I thought their defense would be top 5. I thought they'd be a dominant unit, and they haven't been that. So I think when you look at Joe Burrow, their passing game hasn't quite clicked the way he thought it would click. Many people thought it would click. I think they get it going here. I know they're coming off a division loss. Now they're back out on the road again. That's tough to do. It's a tough place to play. But I'm going to go with the Bengals in this one. I think Burrow will get the thing cranked up, and I just don't think the Saints' defense is as good as it was expected to be.
You know, Pete, it's funny. I've really tossed back and forth on this one and trying to decide who I wanted to go with. I mean, at 1.5, it's not that much to give up if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. That being said, you know, offensively, they've just been inconsistent this year, and I really thought they'd turned the corner a couple weeks ago, but maybe they haven't. And look, Andy Dalton has played well enough. I don't think they've asked him to do too much. And as you talked about, kind of relied more on Taysom Hill and some of the gimmicks, different things he can do. There's a chance Alvin Kamara and both Jarvis Landry are going to be back in this game. That would obviously be a big boost this offense, even though they'll be without Michael Thomas. And defensively, look, I think they can match up well with this offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals and put Joe Burrow under a lot of duress. So, look, the trend this year has been underdogs, in particular home underdogs. So I'll go ahead and take the 1.5. And you touched on it. Tough place to play. Been there before. That noise is deafening. So I do think that's going to play a major factor in this one. So I'll take the 1.5 here in the Saints.
The total is 44. Bengals have gone to the under 10 straight games dating back to last season. All right, another CBS game, 1 o'clock Eastern time. 3-2 Ravens leading the AFC North against the 4-1 Giants. Historically, when you have a team that's 3 or more games over 500, that's a 5 or more point underdog, that underdog comes through and beats the spread 70% of the time.
And that's why I'm on that side. This is the Wink Martindale Bowl. That's what it is. I mean, they got rid of him. And Wink Martindale's an aggressive defensive coordinator who likes to attack, and you know he knows what the strengths and weaknesses are of Lamar Jackson. I think they're going to be able to limit what they do offensively. You're not going to stop him, but you'll limit him. And we saw at times last week when Lamar Jackson's in the pocket at times, he's ordinary. And, you know, just keep him there. And so I think that's what they'll do. They'll have a good plan for him. And they will attack him, which I think you have to do. And on the other side of the ball, the Giants run the ball. And the Ravens' defense has been bad this season. They were better last week. But I think there's going to be an opportunity for Saquon Barkley to keep his team in the game here. So I'm going to take the Giants. I don't think they win the game, but you give me those points, I'm taking them.
I'm with you, Pete. 5 points is a lot for a home underdog, especially one that's 4-1 this year. And you kind of touched on it. They've been a lot more physical up front in the run game, on offense, defensively. I think they've been much improved, in particular with that pass rush. And I think there's something, you know, yet to be desired as far as the Ravens go offensively in the passing game. You talked about Lamar Jackson looking average from the pocket. I mean, the bottom line is they just really haven't been able to find any sort of big play consistency that you can rely on. So I don't think they're going to find it on the road versus this Giants team. I'm with you. I'm taking the 5 points, and maybe even the Giants get to 5-1 with the way Brian Daboll has been coaching this team. But Mark Wink, Wink, as we used to call him back in the day when he was the Denver Broncos, he'll have something special for Lamar Jackson. That's the one thing I can promise you is he's able to identify weaknesses within a quarterback and then use it back against them. That was something that I remember talking to him back when I was still playing and with him. That's one of his expertises here. So I'll be curious to see what this defense looks like in preparing for Lamar Jackson and how they try to shut him down.
Giants 3-0 straight up as an underdog this season, 5-point dogs against the Ravens. Both of our guys on the Giants to cover that. Brady thinks they could win outright.
I think they could win too.
You think they could?
They will, but I think they could.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
it's done a great job with that team. It really has. Brian Daboll.
Well, there's no question. He's the front runner for Coach of the Year right now. We'll see if that keeps up. Patriots and Browns next up, 1 o'clock Eastern time on CBS. Patriots just shut out what was the highest scoring team in the league going into last week. The Lions were averaging 35 a game. Patriots won 29-0.
Yeah, and the defense played well, but the Lions kind of helped them out a little bit. They weren't very good. They had guys down that showed up. The thing here is the Cleveland defense and their inability to stop people. It's been bad all year long, and I think this is going to be a game where Ramondre Stevenson runs the ball. Whoever plays quarterback, it's probably going to be Zappi for the Patriots. He'll make enough throws down the field. And I think on the other side of the ball, Jacoby Brissett made a bad throw the other day to cost them that game. And you know what they want to do. They want to run the ball. Belichick will try and make sure that they don't run the ball, and that means it's going to come down to Jacoby Brissett. And I think in the end, I think the Patriots are going to find a way to not only cover this number, I think they win this game.
I am not on this side on this one, even though as we look at a side-by-side comparison of Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, and they look like they could be brothers at this point. And Zappi, look, he played well enough, but you kind of touched on it. It was mostly the rushing attack. Detroit gave him some help, and defensively they played well. And I think that's going to be more the challenge is, will Cleveland be able to run the football with Nick Chubb, who's arguably the best back in the league, probably next to Saquon Barkley, the way he's looked this year for the Giants. But I think if the Patriots can stop the run, which is a big if with Cleveland at home, in my opinion, they've got a shot in this one. But I'm not betting on that. And I also think, not that this is necessarily a revenge game of any sorts, but Jacoby Brissett knows a little something. He was there with that New England system. I'm sure he knows some of the tricks of the trade for Bill Belichick. So I like Cleveland. I'll lay the 3 points here. Look, this team could actually, if you really break down the way their season's gone, Pete, Cleveland could be undefeated. Playing with Jacoby Brissett the way this season's gone for them. I know they're not. I know their record, is what it says they are. But the reality is, if you go back through all the different games that they've blown, and I think you could throw last week into it, the Atlanta game, obviously the Jets game into it, this team could be undefeated. So surprisingly, they haven't pulled out any of those close ones. I think this one will be close, but I think this one they pull out.
He just can't get the Browns out of them, can he? I mean, he's just whatever. Yeah, they could be undefeated. They're Cleveland Browns.
Pete, could they be undefeated right now with the way their season's gone?
Yes, but there's a lot of teams that could be undefeated if things had gone
Yeah, but there's
way.
not many that got blown out, for example, by 29 points last week. All right? No one's saying that with the Detroit Lions right now.
No, that's true, but there are a couple others that could be undefeated as well. The Raiders could say they could be undefeated as well. You can go around the league and do that, but I know you still have the pull and the tug of the Cleveland Browns. I get it.
I love the Browns. I love my Brownies, all right?
There you go. Okay.
Winner of this game, got to get back to 500 at 3-3. Jags and Colts. And these teams played in week 2, Pete. It was a blowout. The Jags shut out the Colts 24-0.
And remember, the Colts earned the right to be the spinning top of the week that week.
That's right.
That's right. And you know what? They could have been the spinning top of the week this week. That's how bad they are on the offensive line. They're terrible. And, Ryan Kelly's banged up a little bit now. We don't know what his status is going to be. You look at the right tackle position is bad. They put the rookie in at left tackle, Rainman, and he was terrible. I mean, you look at this team right now, they can't protect the quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is not playing well for Jacksonville. He's got to learn to take the check down. It's the old adage, you can't be a hero on every play. I think he's going to get to that. I think this is an opportunity for Jacksonville to go up there and turn around what was a terrible loss last week to the Texans, and they win the game outright because their defensive line should be able to dominate a front that is not very good. I'll take Jacksonville in this one.
I'm with you, Pete. I'm taking the 2 points and Jacksonville. I just don't have much faith in the Indianapolis Colts the way they looked versus Denver. I know they've got additional rest, but offensively, they've struggled as much as anyone. I think that front will be able to get after Matt Ryan, who's showcased some of his immobility, and obviously they haven't run the football well either. And the defense has been shades of itself. I know Trevor Lawrence struggled last week versus Houston. Some boneheaded mistakes. Those are all fixable. For the most part, up until this past week's game, he's looked pretty darn good, I would say. Maybe with the exception of their loss versus Philly. They were good in kind of the first half, then struggled there in the second half. But bottom line is this. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are much improved. I do think they'll be able to win this one. They don't even need the points, but you can go ahead and take the 2 points, but bet the money line as well.
Okay, both on the Jags in that one in Indianapolis. That would be a season sweep of the Colts. The only other game in the CBS early window that they agree on is the Giants to cover the 5 at home against the Ravens. And both Brady and Pete say that might be an outright win for New York. Boy, that place will be buzzing. If they get to 5-1 with another big victory, we'll see. And we'll see if yet another upstart New York team can take down the Packers. Both Pete and Brady on the same side here. Are they taking the Jets or the Pack? Picking the early games on Fox. And Vikings, Dolphins. looked like a better matchup a couple of weeks ago. Dolphins still without Tua, more than likely. Vikings trying to stay atop the NFC North at 4-1. Green Bay coming off a loss to the Giants. Can they take out the Jets? They're back home at Lambeau Field. Buccaneers still struggling offensively, but an 8-point favorite in Pittsburgh. And the 49ers at the Falcons as 5.5-point favorites. Chris Hassel, joined by Pete Prisco. Brady Quinn is with us as well. Let's start with the game between the Packers and the Jets at Lambeau. They can't lose to both New York teams in back-to-back weeks, right?
Well, they could, but they're not going to. I mean, this Jets team is playing pretty good football, but they beat a team last week in Miami that didn't have their quarterback. And so you got to put an asterisk next to it. Give him credit. He's taking receipts. Robert Saleh, he's got receipts from me. I know he's got receipts from Brady. We know that for a fact.
Leger hand-delivered them.
Oh, yeah,
Coach Saleh.
absolutely. So they are playing good football, but this is a must-win for the Packers, and I think they're going to play like that. The defense hasn't played up to expectations. The passing game hasn't clicked yet. They just haven't looked right. This is the game where the Packers start to look right. Aaron Rodgers starts to play really well. And you see his record following a loss. I mean, look at the touchdown to interception ratio, 28-1.
They must have played the Bears a lot coming off a loss.
He's going to get 3 in this one, and they're going to win this game going away. So I'll take the Packers minus the point.
Hold on, Pete. Let's go back for a second since we're taking receipts here. Can I get a quarterback scales on this one? I mean, can we pull that out for this matchup?
Oh, kidding me? It's Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, all right. The other question I want to ask you is the loss to the Giants in London. Do you think that gives them a little extra motivation too coming back? Whereas if maybe they beat a New York Giants team that was kind of hot at the moment, maybe it wouldn't feel quite the same, because that was one of my concerns. Probably not the concern anymore, outside the fact that they didn't take the option to take the bye this week. Instead, they chose to come back and play. And Aaron Rodgers did talk about that a couple of weeks ago and how that could potentially impact their rest, their recovery, all those things. Here's the problem. This is a bad matchup for the Packers. Bottom line is, if you go back and watch the Jets, they are running the football effectively. Breece Hall was a beast, both catching the football, rushing the football last week. The young cornerbacks, in particular Sauce Gardner, those guys can cover down on the outside. So I think points are going to be hard to come by for the Green Bay Packers if they look anything like what they've looked like so far this year, where Aaron Rodgers just doesn't feel comfortable throwing to any of his receivers, even some of the veteran guys in Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. So this one was tough for me. I picked the Jets last week, was able to win back one there. I'm not going to go that direction here, though, only because I know the history of Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau, how tough of a place that is to win. So I'll lay the 7 points here with the Packers. Wouldn't be shocked, though, if this one didn't end up being a push.
He just laid out a whole case to take the Jets, and he took the Packers.
You were zigzagging like a Jet.
Someone had to create suspense. We both picked the Packers. What are you going to do, Pete?
That cold medicine must have kicked in when you made that pick.
All right, so after all that, both taking Green Bay minus the 7 in that one. Bucks are at the Steelers. Steelers coming off a 35-point loss. Pete, that's their worst loss since the 80s. Were you even covering the NFL then?
In the late 80s, I started covering the NFL. But I've been watching it since the 40s. Never forget that. No, that could have been worse. It should have been worse. They could have done the Buffalo Bills did whatever they wanted to do, throwing the football, whatever they wanted to. And I think Tom Brady's going to be in the same situation here. That everybody wants to point to Pickett playing and starting on the road and everything else. It wasn't that. Their defense was awful. And their defense just isn't that good. Without T.J. Watt, they're a different defense. Tom Brady's going to have his way with them this week. And I think on the other side of the ball, I like what I saw from Pickett last week. He showed me what I thought he had. He has fire in the belly. He's a tough kid. He's going to play. He's going to be a good quarterback. All this talk about if they draft a quarterback, they could draft a quarterback early this year. That'd be stupid if they do that. He's going to be a really good quarterback. But this is a tough spot. You come back home, and now you play a Bucs defense that's really good. So I'm going to take Tampa minus the points.
I hate this pick because I'm on the other side of this one, but I think it's just because I'm still trying to believe that the Steelers aren't as bad as what we've seen so far this year. I mean, they're a shade of themselves defensively, not having a guy like T.J. Watt to really impact opposing offenses. And now we find out after the pectoral injury that he had to get his knee scoped. He's going to be out even longer than we thought. So that doesn't help my case. But to Pete's point, look, Kenny Pickett, he's a rookie. He's going to make some of his mistakes. A lot of this, to me, isn't so much on him. They're kind of a young team on the outside, George Pickens in particular. You could see some of the miscommunication between those two from time to time. But it's Matt Canada. I mean, until they change this offense, I'm not really sure what more they can do. This is one where, look, 8 points feels like a lot. Home underdogs have been the trend. Probably the last time I'm going to go this direction with the Steelers, but I'm going to take the 8 points and the home dog. I don't think Steelers win here, but I do think they can keep it within that number.
But you think that this can be a breakout game finally for Tom Brady in the offense? Because they've not looked good.
I mean, you saw what Josh Allen did. Now, Tom Brady in that offense isn't what the Bills have, but it can be pretty good. So, yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the 49ers at the Falcons. Falcons fans think that they should be atop the division right now, if not for the bad roughing the passer call. 49ers right now, Sportsline thinks they're going to run away with this division. 77% chance to win their division, sitting there at 3-2.
By the way, if Falcons would have still had to gone down and score points. Right. I mean, they might need to remember that.
And a touchdown at that, not just a field goal. Correct.
So, but they're again, the Falcons hang around in games. That's what they do. They've been a team that's been in every game so far this season, and that's a tribute to what Arthur Smith
They could be undefeated, like Brady said earlier.
They could be undefeated. When you look at it, they could be. If they score late against the Rams, if they score late against the Bucs, there's a lot of ifs involved.
They are undefeated against the spread, though, 5-0.
And they've been very good, and they're going to stay that way because I think this is a bad spot for the 49ers. The 49ers actually stayed on the on the East Coast and stayed at the Greenbrier in West Virginia this week after beating Carolina.
They go golfing?
And I'm sure they did. And this is a situation where Kyle Shanahan didn't always do that, but he started to do it, and they're 7-0 in those games. Think about that. In the games when they stay on the East Coast, they're 7-0. So I think I'm bucking a trend here. I think the 49ers will win the game, but I think the points are too many. I'm going to take the Falcons and the points.
I'm right there with you. I mean, the Falcons have been one of the better surprises this year with I think the way they played offensively. They've been better than I thought, even defensively. I'm curious to see how they're going to match up, though, versus the 49ers and their ability to run the football. I think that's one of the true tests, too, we've seen this year. It doesn't matter who's at running back for the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan was going to dial up some plays. They're going to find some production. And look, Jimmy Garoppolo, Chris, you talked about their chance to win the division. If they had started off the season with Garoppolo as their starter, I would have picked them. Instead, I picked the Rams. Now I look like a clown for doing that, but I also didn't foresee Trey Lance getting knocked out of the starting job so quickly. So I do think it's the NFC West, the 49ers to lose. This is one, though, that I think they get a close win here by 3 points or so, but not quite enough to cover that number. So I'll take the 5.5 points. The Falcons have been competitive. They've stuck in games. I think they'll stay in this one.
All right, one more game to pick in the early window, and it's the Vikings at the Dolphins. Vikings are favored in Miami. I'm surprised the line isn't more. It's 3 right now. I thought it might be more like 4 without Tua once again in this game and the way Miami's looked the last couple of weeks.
Is it a primetime game?
No.
Kirk Cousins will play well then. I mean, we can count on that. And Miami's defense has been really bad. Really bad. I mean, everybody wants to point to the quarterback position, but this defense has struggled all year long. They don't pressure the quarterback. I think they're 30th in sack rate. You can't win games like that. And Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson will pick them apart. This is probably going to be Skylar Thompson, too, a quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. That's not a good thing. I know he's going to get all the first-team reps, or a lot of them this week. That means that he's going to be more prepared than he was a week ago. But I think this is a great spot for the Vikings and Kirk Cousins in that passing game to win the game. So I'll take Minnesota minus the points.
I'm with you, Pete. I'll take I'll lay the 3 points here and the road favorite. Look, Kirk Cousins is operating really well within this Kevin O'Connell offense. It seems like they just have a good feel for his strengths and what he likes to do, and then how to get the ball to Justin Jefferson in all sorts of creative ways. Teams have at times taken him away, and even though you could make the case that the Dolphins have the ability to match up with them, few teams have been able to do it. They've got to devote 2 guys on them, then the running game gets going for the Vikings. So I think this is a tough spot for the Dolphins. You've got a rookie, 7th-round pick in Skylar Thompson, who, he looked great in the preseason, but after seeing him last week, looked like a deer in headlights, and I feel like their offense had a hard time figuring out what it could do, if anything. I do think this Vikings defense under Ed Donatel has come along, and they're starting to play better and better, even though they gave up some plays to the Chicago Bears last week. So I just don't have much faith in where the Dolphins are at until Tua gets back. We see how he's recovering from that concussion. So I'll lay the 3 points.
You still think they can get it back, Pete, when Tua comes back, whenever that is?
Who knows?
I mean, they look like potentially a top 5 team with him, but without him.
Yeah, and the defense hasn't played well either. Let's not forget. They've been really a big disappointment. Of all the units in this league, they're one of the biggest disappointments.
All right. Guys, going with the Vikings -3 in Miami this week, with likely the 3rd-string quarterback getting the start for the Dolphins. Recapping the early picks, and there is a little bit of agreement here. Packers -7. in a game against the Jets. I almost said Giants, but they lost to the Giants last week. The Falcons plus 5.5, keeping it close against the 49ers, and the Vikings to win by more than 3 points and get to 5-1 on the season in Miami. Up next, the biggest game of the week. It's the Bills, it's the Chiefs, and both Brady and Pete are on the same side. All right, only 3 late afternoon games on Sunday, a couple of them starting at 4:05, the big one on CBS at 4:25. The Bills, 3-point favorites in Kansas City against the Chiefs in a matchup of the 2 Super Bowl favorites at this point and the 2, right now, frontrunners for NFL MVP. Let's pick them. Chris Hassel joined by Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn. And this is rare for Patrick Mahomes to be an underdog, especially at home. But he has never not covered the 8 times that he has been an underdog, Pete.
There's a first for everything, isn't there? Mm-hmm. I like the Buffalo Bills. I think they're the better team right now. That offense is explosive. It's dynamic. And we saw Derek Carr had success throwing the ball down the field. There were guys open. Devontae Adams was open. But now you got Diggs. You have Davis. They're going to be able to get the ball down the field. And Josh Allen's playing at such a high level. This is a revenge game of sorts for the Buffalo Bills. We know that. Don't ever say 13 seconds around that organization ever again.
Oh, they claim they moved away. They moved along from that.
I brought it up a bunch of times and they got mad at me. So no, they have not. It will be.
Yeah, but they told you.
Until they win a Super Bowl, it's going to hang over that franchise. And if they don't win a Super Bowl with this group, it'll be like wide right. That's what it'll be. And I think this is the year for them. I think this is the game for them. I think this game gets them home field advantage in the postseason. They're the better team right now. I'll take the Buffalo Bills.
I'm with you, Pete. I mean, look, you opened up talking about the tackle play for the Kansas City Chiefs this past week. That's got to be concerning when you've got the matchup versus a Buffalo Bills defensive line that is deep and can just roll guys in who've got speed and the ability to get to Patrick Mahomes. The reality is, too, I mean, he tends to hold on to the ball a bit more, not be as much of a running threat as Josh Allen is once he gets outside the pocket. And I think the other thing is, if you look at Sean McDermott and what they're going to try to do in this game, not having to worry about Tyreek Hill like they had to do last year when we saw them square off in the playoffs. They were going to try to lock down Travis Kelce, who had a phenomenal game last week, 4 touchdown receptions. We get that. Apparently no one, Patrick Graham or no one else in the Raiders defense got the calling card that maybe you should just double Travis Kelce the entire game and allow someone else to beat you. I think the Buffalo Bills are going to implement something similar to that. And I also think they have better personnel to match up with Travis Kelce. So, look, I'm going to lay the 3 points here with the Buffalo Bills. I think they're the more complete team at this point in time, even though it feels like a no-no betting against Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs at home.
This will snap a streak of 41 straight home starts where Patrick Mahomes has been a favorite. Chiefs, 3-point dogs in this game, and the guys are fine laying those 3 with Buffalo. The other 2 early games, Panthers, Rams, and Cardinals, Seahawks. The Cardinals are road favorites in Seattle against Geno Smith, who continues to spin it.
Geno Smith's playing great football, and maybe they traded away Russell Wilson because they knew Geno Smith could play like that.
He certainly outperformed him this season so far.
He's been better. He's been
a lot better.
Can't sugarcoat it. He's been a lot better, and they're going to score points. The problem with Seattle is their defense is going to give up a ton of points, and Arizona's offense hasn't quite clicked yet. I think this is an opportunity to go up to Seattle, where they've played very well, by the way. The Arizona Cardinals have played very well. I think they're going to go up there, put up a lot of points, and this is going to be a high-scoring game. This is going to be fun to watch because I think Arizona is going to score theirs. I think Geno Smith will have another big day throwing it. But I like Arizona to win the game, and I like this game to go soaring over the total.
Oh, nice, Pete. You don't pick me over-unders very often, so I like that you really stuck something out there. I'm going to lay the 3 points here with the Cardinals. I just think they're probably the overall better team. I don't trust the Seahawks defense. And Geno Smith's been a great story this year. He's kept them in ball games. This is one, though, where I think the secondary for Arizona can maybe match up better, at least has traditionally over the past few years with the secondary, or excuse me, with the receivers for the Seattle Seahawks to shut them down somewhat. So I'll lay the 3 points. I think Kyler Murray will make enough plays with his arms and with his legs to help them cover this number. And for whatever reason, these 2 teams tend to play each other really well at the other person's place. I don't know why that is as divisional opponents, but that usually has been the history between these 2.
And the Cardinals have played really well away from home since the start of last season, 10-1 on the road. One more game in the late afternoon, and it's the Panthers, who just fired Matt Rule, at the Rams, who are in need of a get-right game in a hurry.
I want to do everything I could to take the Panthers in this game, but I just couldn't. I'm just not. I mean, their offense is a disaster. If you watch them, the offensive line is bad, and that's going to be the problem in this game. The Rams haven't been the Rams. I think, I said this earlier in the week, I think it's Super Bowl hangover to the nth degree. Their offensive line hasn't played well. This should be a low-scoring game. I don't think either team's going to get a lot of points, but I think the Rams will find a way to really limit what Carolina does on offense, P.J. Walker and gang on that side of the ball. Sometimes you get a little oomph, a little boost from having a new coach. I don't think that's the case in this game. I think it's a bad spot for Carolina. I'll take the Rams minus the points.
It's a lot of points. Don't feel great about it, but you're talking about different time zones too. Pete usually touches on that, but I guess it's more West Coast teams going east, and this is the opposite. But that being said, the offense leaves a lot to be desired. There just hasn't been many big plays there, and I'm not sure P.J. Walker's going to bring that, although I am concerned about his ability to make plays with his legs. It's about time, though, to get right against one of these defenses. I'm not sure Carolina is that defense. They've been all right this year, maybe not as good as I thought they were going to be coming into the season, but bottom line is Matt Stafford, if he just cuts out the turnovers and they can run the football a little bit better, I think the Rams control this game. So I'll lay the 10.5 points. Don't feel great about it, at least not as confident as Pete does.
Rams got to have it. Just a 26% chance to make the postseason right now, according to Sportsline. A bunch of agreement here in the late afternoon window for Pete and for Brady. They both like the Bills not only to win in Kansas City, but to cover the 3 points. They like the Cardinals to cover the 3 in Seattle against Geno Smith and the Seahawks. And Pete says it's soaring over that 51 mark on the total.
We'll hear later about that.
Oh, could be a best bet. All right, that's coming up too. Best bets from both Pete and Brady. We also have to pick the primetime games Sunday and Monday night, and the Sunday nighter is huge in the NFC East. Cowboys and Cooper Rush, Eagles and Jalen Hurts. Huge game on Sunday Night Football. 4-1 Cowboys. They've won 4 straight with Cooper Rush as the starter. Eagles are the only unbeaten team in the NFL. They're 5-point favorites at home against the Cowboys. On Monday night, Chargers hosting the Broncos. We're picking them with Pete Prisco and Brady Quinn, and we're starting with the Sunday night game. It's good on good. The Eagles, the best pass blocking team in the league. The Cowboys, the best pass rushing team in the league.
And the Eagles' pass blocking is helped by Jalen Hurts and his ability to move. I mean, let's be honest about it. They can move. He can get outside the pocket. That creates problems for these pass rushers who come up the field, and they get cracks and creases where you can turn them into long plays. So you can't really pin your ears back every single time like Dallas likes to do. I think they have to be a little more disciplined in their rush, which will slow them down a bit. I think the Eagles' defense is going to be able to limit what the Cowboys do running the football. And if you take away the running game, it's been very good, by the way, in the last couple of weeks. If you take that away, puts a lot of pressure on Cooper Rush. He's thrown for 225 yards average in the games. He hasn't been asked to win games. This is a game he's going to be asked to win a game. Can he win it? I don't think he can. I'll take the Eagles minus the points.
I'm with you. I'm laying the points here, too, and taking the Eagles, Pete. I mean, bottom line is Cooper Rush threw for like over 100 yards last week in their win. Everyone's raving about it, but it was largely their defense and their rushing attack. You talked about the ability for Jalen Hurts to move around. He also simplifies what you can do. Can't play as much man-to-man and match up with a team. I'm not sure you want to against the Eagles anyway because they've got so many weapons on the outside, but the zone read running attack that they implement, it's tough to defend, and it slows down the pass rush. They're putting someone in a run-pass conflict, and they're usually going to read one of those DNs, and if you commit too much, they're handing it off or they're throwing in behind you. So it's a big predicament, I think, for this Dallas Cowboys defense. Now, I do think Dave Quinn's going to have a game plan, and let's not forget, too, Jordan Mailata is going to be out of this one with a shoulder injury. So there will be some weak points on that Philly offensive line, even as good as they've been. But I still feel good enough that, look, the Eagles have been playing at the highest level of maybe any team in the NFL right now. And on top of that, eventually there's going to be a game that's going to be put on the back of Cooper Rush. I think that's going to be this game. And I think he might struggle more than people realize.
Both thinking that Cooper Rush is going to have to do some special things in this game for the Cowboys to win.
Well, there's one guy that we work with named BMAC who thinks that if he wins this game, he should stay in as the starter.
Yeah, he just wants to ride the hot hand. By the way, this is the 123rd meeting all time between these two teams. Just the second time they've entered the game with 4-game winning streaks or more.
Wow.
Cowboys 4 straight,
Incredible.
Eagles 5 straight. Monday Night Football, AFC West. Can we get the Broncos off primetime? I mean, I know the TV executives thought this was going to be such a sexy team with Russell Wilson coming in and the offense and all that. It's been ugly. Broncos are 5-point dogs in LA against the Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Denver offense is awful, and for all the talk about him having shoulder issues, did he get his eyes fixed? Because he missed a lot of open guys last week. I mean, he's just not playing very well, and they're not playing very well. Now you got your left tackles out, one of your starting corners is out. In Darby, Garrett Bowles, the left tackle's gone. They have problems, the Broncos. And on the other side, the Chargers, their defense hasn't been as good as expected. Everybody's run on them, as they did last year. They always do. They can sign 14 different guys off the street as free agents. They still get run on. So this will be Melvin Gordon, revenge game. People love revenge games. I'm not one of them, but he is facing his former team. I think the Broncos will try and run the ball and shorten the game. That's not going to work against Justin Herbert. My only concern here is at some point, we know Staley's going to go for it on 4th and 14 from his own 23 at some point in the game and cost himself at least 10 points.
No Keenan Allen, no Joey Bosa. I know Pete mentioned some of the Denver Broncos that'll be out for this one, but I think this game will be closer than people think. I'm not saying the Broncos win, but I will go ahead and take the 5 points here with Denver. Eventually, their offense is going to be clicking at a higher level. I thought their defense started to get things together versus the Indianapolis Colts. They are coming off a bit more rest too, considering they played on Thursday night. So I guess I feel a little more confident where they're at. And by the way, it was a lat injury for Russell Wilson, Pete.
Whatever it was.
I
don't believe it. I don't believe it anyways. I mean, all of a sudden he had an injury after he played like crap. I mean, come on.
Where is your lat, Pete? Can you point to it? Where's your lat?
When I do pull downs, I get big lats.
But you can't do a pull-up, can you?
It's called a latissimus dorsi. A latissimus dorsi, Pete. That's the
look at
technical.
Dr. Brady.
There goes Brady.
And what's your cold call that you have? Hey, Brady, is Russell Wilson washed? Is he washed?
He's not washed. Look, it's in a new system. I'm not sure what took him away from hitting KJ Hamler on a concept that was similar to the one in the Super Bowl. He threw an interception at the goal line against the New England Patriots. I'm not sure if it was flashbacks to that moment or what, but I just think he needs to start moving and taking off, using his legs and some of that athleticism. You saw that a bit in their Thursday night football game, but clearly not enough. There's some rushing lanes for him, and I think he needs to start forcing defenses to defend him to help clean up some of the things downfield and make it a little easier. But bottom line is, he's got to start feeling more comfortable with what he's seeing out there on the field as reads and progressions, because he's missing too many guys from time to time, and it's very surprising considering how much football he's played and how successful he's been. But eventually, this thing is going to get on track.
I don't think he's washed either. I mean, but there's some people out there that are putting that out there and saying that he looks a little heavier, he doesn't run like he used to, and he's become an ordinary quarterback.
You think of all the bad offenses that this Broncos team has had since 2007. This is the worst offensive start through 5 games for the Broncos, averaging
I want
just
Drew
15
Lock
a game.
back.
How about Brock Osweiler? Yeah, bring him back. All right, so only agreement on the Eagles here. Eagles -5 is the pick on Sunday Night Football as the Eagles take on the Cowboys, but they disagree on the Broncos and the Chargers. Got your performance multiplier powered by Liquid IV. It's best bets for week 6. Pete, I've had you go first all show long. Let's let Brady go first. Okay. Brady, what's your best bet?
Well, I could use some luck from Pete by potentially going first. He's been good in these best bets. Mine's one where I'm banking on Kirk Cousins at 1 p.m. Eastern time, headed down to South Florida and taking on the Miami Dolphins, who are going to be playing with their third-string quarterback, Skylar Thompson. He's a rookie out of Kansas State. He had a good preseason, but didn't look so good last week versus the New York Jets. I know he's got a week to prepare, but we talked about earlier in today's show, their defense hasn't been as good as we thought they'd be, in particular the secondary and locking down opponents. Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson can absolutely get after you. And they also have been great stopping the run, and their offensive line's been susceptible to pressure. And it seems like the Vikings are starting to get going a little bit in the pass rush. So you're laying the 3 points here. You got to feel good about the Minnesota Vikings taking a commanding lead in this game, then really just handling it the rest of the way.
I don't normally do this, give out a total as my best bet, but I'm going to. Arizona and Seattle will go up and down the field all day long. It's a bad defense. You got a good offense in Seattle. This game is going to get, as I like to say, it's going to get really loose. I'm taking the over 51 in that game.
All right, and you liked Seattle to cover I'm sorry, you like the Cardinals to
Cardinals.
cover the
Cardinals.
points against
Cardinals are
Seattle.
winning
Cardinals
that game.
slight favorites in that game. All right, guys, it's the first week of byes. Raiders, Titans, Texans, Lions on the bye this week. What are you laughing at?
Brady's laughing at me. I can tell.
Because I'm thinking of Pete on a Friday night getting loose.
Out there at Fishtails
Yes.
in
Get
Fort
loose
Lauderdale.
on a Friday, and then you have losers on a Sunday.
This week's going to be better.
We're going to be better this
It
week.
has to
we
turn.
have to be.
It has
I'm
to
telling
turn.
you, one of us is having a great week this week.
For Brady Quinn and Pete Prisco, I'm Chris Hassel. Thanks for watching, and good luck in your picks this week.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.